Hello and welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. Our speaker today is Sanda Clark, and she is the lone Democrat running for the legislature in rural legislative district 19. Now, she spent her first 14 years in a dictatorship in Romania, and she sees elements of that dictatorship spreading here in Arizona. In Romania, she was told by the authoritarian government how to vote, which books to read, who could be your friend, and if you spoke out, the secret police would arrest you and you would disappear. And we're noticing that the Republicans here in Arizona are also planning an authoritarian regime, starting with cameras in the classrooms to keep eye on all our kids and teachers, eliminating personal and reproductive rights, overthrowing past elections, eliminating voting by mail, and pardoning all the Oath Keeper criminals who rioted on January 6th. And so today, Sanda says that the Republican Party is belligerent and advocates for taking over with fighting in the streets. They advocate a civil war. And she grew up in a communist country, and she doesn't want America or Arizona to come to that. And with that, Sanda, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor to be here. Preaching to the choir sometimes really feels good, especially nowadays when it's kind of difficult to really feel comfortable talking to people just normally, because you are either with us or you are against us. It seems to be the order of the day. I have been crying for a long time for anybody, and some of my friends are here from Green Valley, and we meet every Wednesday. And for about 6 years, I would come to our Wednesday meetings and dumbfounded, unable to understand how we are allowing ourselves to succumb to such dark times. I don't understand that. I really don't, and I still don't. Although I'm beginning to, by thinking, how can that happen? I'm beginning to see parallels between how was it possible in the country that I grew up in and how it's becoming the normalized in America. And it starts, it very simply, you can explain what authoritarianism is by listening to what Trump just said recently regarding the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Give them back to me. They are mine, mine, mine. That's how authoritarian leaders think. In Romania, after the king was expelled, the government took over, and the new communist government, would simply say that there is no more opportunity for private ownership. So what we own is ours. What is yours is ours also. So if you owned an apartment or a home or anything that was yours, there was no more private ownership of any sort. And that's what most people don't understand, but that's what happens. There is absolutely nothing you can argue with the government, this type of government. What they say goes. If it says it's mine, it's mine. And there is no recourse to appeal anywhere. So, but what I saw 4 years ago, it started with what Trump said about the press being the enemy of the people. In Romania, where I grew up, press was considered to be the enemy of the people, because through the press, if you read free press, which didn't exist in Romania, but you could still get some of the communist-leaning newspapers, like from France, like my father would always buy L'Humanité, which means the humanity in French, and he'd bring it home and read it. Because it was a communist leaning publication, you could purchase it. Was it allowed for you to read it? No, but it was available to buy. So when you control what people read, when you control what people know, when you control what people memorize, the party line, we call it in America the talking points, but this is really a party line. It's a mentality line where it prevents a person from developing the ability to think for themselves. It's very easy to control the will of the people, because they just become they become like sheep. They just follow. They don't have any motivation that is singularly theirs. That is not encouraged. So sameness, being the same, in a way, that is part of what was in America, in our capitalist kind of frame of mind. McDonald's are everywhere the same. That's meant to make you feel comfortable and at home. The totalitarian leaders, rulers, I shouldn't call them leaders because they don't lead, they just bully. That's how they believe. If everybody has the same, nobody feels that he's underserved or lacking on anything. Growing up in Romania, I knew not a single one of my friends had a car, not a single one of my friends had a television, not a single one of my friends had owned anything. So if your father, like my father was a lawyer, but worked for, there are no private lawyers like in America that you charge your own fees. You are given the clients that the collective run by the government deems that should be your pile of trials, and you are paid accordingly. You are paid whatever they decide that you deserve to be paid. There is no private, again, there is no private business. There is no private ownership. It's all government controlled. And it seems that we are headed that way because once you are told what books you can read, what books are legal and they are not legal, well, what is freedom? The freedom to choose what you read, the freedom to choose what you study, who you study with. Once you create this feeling of fear that parents can go and tell on the teacher if the teacher by any chance mentioned the word gay, that's, the teacher can be dismissed, especially in Arizona with no protection for employment at all. It's at will kind of state. You'd be fired just because you use the wrong term that they don't deem it's appropriate to use. So all of these are just the tendencies that nurture a subjugated people. And those oath keepers and all of those militias, that they remind me of the Gestapo, and they remind me of in Romania we had the legionnaires before the German people came over and just took the Jews to concentration camps, or the gay people to concentration camps, or gypsies to concentration camps. We had the legionnaires. What they would do, they would intimidate, they would spy on you, they would try and get information from your neighbors about you. So it became a very cynical kind of way of existence. And I always tell my friends, I don't have a sense of humor because I never grew up with cartoons. Well, there are no cartoons in Romania. There's never anything that was very much, fun for kids to grow up in. We always worked very hard. And that's why I still work very hard. I never say no to an offer to do the extra mile, because in Romania, that's how you become respected, rewarded for being a hard worker, for trying your best and never stopping till your very best is even better than your very best that you thought possible. So in some ways, it encourages excellence, but in the other way, it encourages also kind of tunnel vision where you don't have time to think of anything that's fun. Everything is work and your reward is doing well. In this country, I came here with incredible opportunities that I never thought would be possible, where I learned how to think. And that's why I became so opinionated, and I've got such strong opinions about a lot of stuff. To me, it baffles why anybody would be so nonchalant about parting with those freedoms. People have died for them. People have fought for them for years. And now we just seem to be okay with losing that. It's hard for me to understand why. And the only reason that I can understand why is the lack of education. We are not investing in public education. We are investing in only kind of education that we can control, that we can indoctrinate from a very young age. So people conform and learn to feel comfortable with being not allowed, to become who they want to be, but rather be members of this incredible herd of people who all feel the same way. If you were to ask a particular person today, what don't you like about the Democrats? They say, well, I don't like that abortion stands on. What don't you like about abortion stands on? Well, I don't want somebody to, that's murder. But so then I would ask, well, how do you feel about capital punishment? That's murder also. That's different. You see, there is nothing that makes sense, that's long range, that is consistent. Consistency is not part of how they think. They think for that particular item only, and it's isolated, the same way that people become isolated. In Romania, we were afraid because we never knew when somebody would spy on us. And they would say, well, you see the Schulmans? They listen to Radio Free Europe at night. All that would be necessary for my father to have gone to the Delta. And that was the reason why my parents elected to leave. They were afraid of me because I became a very diehard little communist girl, rewarded for being an excellent student, and became a pioneer at the age of 12, which is very early. It's about, you usually become a pioneer and a member of the youth, communist youth, when you are about 14 years of age. So my parents were afraid that I would tell on them, that they listened to my father buys French newspapers, that we have a Larousse at home, which was kind of a dictionary, very advanced French, that does a lot of explanation about a lot of different stuff. It's like Encyclopedia Britannica of sorts in French. I took French lessons privately as a young girl. None of that was allowed. I was in Romania when I started elementary school. By 4th grade, we were taking Russian. And when my parents left Romania, I was speaking fluent Russian, because it's not something that you're given a choice to take Russian or not take Russian. Everybody took Russian. So when you become afraid of your own child, it's a very terrible situation to grow in. But that's what's coming here. Kids are encouraged to tell on other kids if they are gay or if they have issues about their own sexuality or their own, if they are transgender or not, if they feel that they are the wrong gender in the wrong body. That to me, it's like spying. And spying is okay for as long as you spy for the right cause. It's living in fear. It's a terrible way to live. And that's what happens when you live in under totalitarian regime. You're afraid of everything. And let's be honest with us. They are telling us that we should be afraid because they're going to take our social security away if they take power. They're going to take our Medicare away. For me and my husband, this is our entire existence. They take away our Medicare and social security and we can no longer survive. We don't have savings, we don't have investments. We are independent contractors all of our lives. And we lived our life according to our beliefs. We never felt that we should be subjugated by anybody or follow anything. We are always independent to a fault. And we did well. And I would like to be able to continue to be alive and well from today on into the future. And so that's what I decided that I was going to run, because to me, it is not possible to abdicate protecting our democracy. That would be to commit suicide of sorts as a nation. And so in this very red district, I have to say that when I talk to people and I try to explain to them that Putin is not a strong man, he's a weak man, he's an afraid guy, stealing from the people, and try to expose them to the parallels of that kind of life and contrast it with our way of life, I don't find too much opposition, because deep down, we all of us want the same. The same, we want to have good access to the internet, to which we are so accustomed to. We want to be able to take care of our health without going bankrupt. We want to be able to love who we want and to grow up not being afraid of one another. So to me, this election is not about Democrat or Republican. It is the election and the choice between democracy and autocracy and fascism. And we need to call them for what they are. They are fascists. All you have to do is just saw the things that came out in Los Angeles about the Jews. The anti-Semitism is rampant and accepted. I don't know if it's encouraged, but at the very least, I would say it's accepted. One guy cracked a joke about Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania that it would be good if he was gassed. And no Republican has ever said anything in opposition to it. So if you are silent, you are collaborating and you are a supporter of those ideas. We need to stand up, we need to speak up, we need to be counted and to say, no, this is not for us. So I'm running because I really believe that our democracy is sacred, our vote should be sacred, and our freedom should be sacred and respected. And so when you talk about the abortion issue, to me, this is not about just reproductive choices, but it is about privacy issue, about respect for one's privacy, sense of privacy. Having cameras in the schools is just, to me, is just incomprehensible. It's another form of spying and of making you insecure about what you are saying, who you are hanging out with, and so on and so forth. So for me, this is a must-win election for our future, for our children's future, for this planet's future, for decency, for humanity. And so I hope that I'll get enough votes to at least eliminate one of the current legislators in this LD. But even if we don't, I have to say I'm proud for doing it. I'm proud for putting them on notice that we are not dumb and we will not accept it without a fight. And that's what my run is all about. And I'm up for any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you so much, Sanda. Really appreciate everything you said, your courage, you're standing for all the American ideals, and kudos to you for everything you've done. I encourage people to ask questions. I had a quick question for you, Sanda. I was just reading that the Republican book ban went into effect here in Arizona, and it means that it discourages teachers from teaching books by colored authors, and also books that deal with LGBTQ issues. What are your thoughts about that?
Horrified. I mean, to me, those who are afraid or unwilling to acknowledge our history are about to repeat it. That's not just a slogan, that's what happens. I mean, with all that happened in Germany, I have to give them credit for them facing to their past and trying to make repairs to what has happened. But it's also ignorance. They think that if you read in a book about a child being gay or being trans or whatever, it will catch it. It's like a disease or something. That they don't understand that a person is born of a certain way. It has nothing to do. You can't choose to be gay or to be straight. That's how you are born. And for anybody to deny their children or their friends who they are, it's horrifying. Can you imagine to have to live all your life pretending that you are somebody that you are not? What a burden that is, and encourages not the very last to say that disingenuousness is trying to pretend. Live a pretend life is a horrible chain. It's like having a ball and chain attached to your feet. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is scary. And those people are very ignorant, unfortunately.
Right. Let's turn to Mike Bryant. Mike has got his hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Dean Schaus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly, but Chelsea. He asks, what are the issues you're seeing as you talk to voters in LD19? What are they most concerned about?
They're most concerned about water, because the wells are running dry. And those who know me from Green Valley will tell you that one of my ideas was to start advocating on passing bills that will require if you want to own property or businesses or whatever, you have to live in Arizona. You cannot be a foreigner because in Cochise County, many of the mega farms belong to Saudi Arabia. So they take the water for free. They don't have to pay for it. They also take the crops that they grow, the alfalfa, to feed their cows in Saudi Arabia, good quality crops. So yeah, I mean, I think we should learn from Mexico. And in Mexico, if you want to own property, you have to live there. You cannot just own property and live somewhere else. They talk about making America first. Well, let's put Arizona, make Arizona first, and let it, all the natural resources and the beauty of our state belong to us, not to people in Saudi Arabia or Canada who are destroying, defacing our beautiful Santaritas and the rest of them with their mining. Somebody said, well, but we have the elements that are necessary to make those the chips. Well, this can be the only place on earth that this resource is available to, right? Let them go elsewhere. Or if they want to relocate here, live here, create jobs here, yeah, let's do that. But I mean, it's I'm not for allowing foreigners to own our resources, especially if they don't pay for water. That's stupidity. And by the way, Ruben Gallego just said that let's not allow foreign corporations to become owners of our resources. And I'm with him 150%.
Yeah, especially our water. I have a question for you of my own. I haven't seen any other questions in the chat at this point, but I'd like to hear your opinions of the people who are running for the top of the ticket here in Arizona, including Blake Masters, who's running against Kelly. Of course, Carrie Lake, who's running for governor, Abe Hamada, who's running to be our attorney general, and of course, Mark Fincham, who is running to be Secretary of State, which has got to be the biggest joke the universe has played in a long time.
It's unfortunately, it's not a joke. What I cannot understand is that they are so, if the polls are correct, that they are such close, such narrow margins by which Mark Kelly is ahead of Masters by 2.5% now. How is that possible? I simply don't get it, right? So, well, I think that if you read the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the Constitution says that insurrectionists should not be allowed, cannot have hold office. So it's time that we prosecute those insurrectionists, Mark Fincham being one of them, and he shouldn't even be able to be considered to run, let alone win, right? But let me tell you, if any of these people take control, they win, we are finished. And this will be the very last election that is free elections, and as we have known them. This is not a joke. I know that Adrian Fonte said that at the visit that we had, his last visit that he was here in Tucson. He's right. We are not going to have elections the way we have known them. Democracy is on its way out, and we are going to be at best a Hungary.
So we have a question from Sue Heck in the chat. She'd like to know if you have any ideas of why Arizona seems to be one of the red states that is leaning most toward autocracy. She's kind of surprised it wasn't. Well, it is to some extent Florida and Texas, but we seem to be leaders in authoritarian nonsense. Any idea why that might be, why Arizona is leading?
Some of my ideas are, first of all, we have had a prolonged drought as far as democracy goes in Arizona. We have had only rabid Republicans for a very long time. That's number one. Number two, I think being a Western state, the Wild West and the cowboys and all of this, the strong men seem to have an appeal to a lot of people that live here who are not exactly, I don't want to say uneducated, but they look at people who are educated, who are readers, as elitist. To be now an educated person and to be a reader, it's a defect in Arizona. Not everywhere, but we tend to look at, after all, they worship a president who was proud to say he never read, right? Except the Bible. He loved the Bibles. And when he was asked to quote anything from the Bible, he said, oh, there are so many, I can't just come up with one because he doesn't know anything. So I think, male domination with the cowboy culture maybe has some contributing factor. But I really think that the control of the schools and the poor quality of our public education in Arizona is, to a large extent, a contributing reason why that is, why we are such at the top of the list. We are last in education, first in stupidity.
Let's turn to Shirley Muni. She's got her hand up. Go ahead, Shirley.
Hi, I just would like you to remind me of your district, where your district is. I gather it includes Green Valley, and also how the campaign is going.
Okay, so my district is artificially created super MAGA red district. That's how it was labeled when we first started this journey. It includes Cochise County, but not Bisbee is eliminated. Bisbee is not part of the district. They took it out because it's Democrat. They have part of Santa Cruz, but not Nogales, because it also leans Democrat. So, they carved out all the Democrats' pockets, like Pima County. We have a little bit of Pima County, but not Tucson, of course. We've got Vail, right, which is really red. And in Green Valley, we have got a good portion of it, but it also cut in half. Half of Green Valley is in our district, which is Republican, and half are in Grijalva's district, which is Democrat, solidly Democrat. So we have got Greenlee County, which is red as could be. You've got Graham County, which is pretty red. Cochise County, Santa Cruz, and Pima. These are the 5 different counties. However, I'm very proud to say that our LD, if you ask around, it's probably the most organized of the newly created LDs, because they've got a great group of people from each county that is determined not to allow distance. That it's an enormously large district to keep us apart. And so this is, I'm super indebted to every single person who is on our LD19 on the board, who has been working tirelessly to make sure that we are cohesive and unified and trying hard. So how is it going? Well, all I can tell you is that when I first started this race, nobody wanted to have anything to do with me or with the race, because they thought it's a loser. And unfortunately, most organizations only like to promote and invest in winners. They look at Ohio and Tim Ryan. He's got no help from any of the Democratic entities. And he's so close, and he really should have been able to win this. But I mean, who likes a loser? Nobody likes a loser. That's why nobody wanted to run. My feeling is that, you can never predict a race, because a lot has to do with the candidate and how committed they are to what they stand for, and how energetic and willing to go everywhere to meet the people and talk to the people. I have not had any real occasion to say that people have booed me or jeered me, or, I've got incredible response from the people. And currently our race is rated as competitive. So I think that coming from a DOA to a competitive is good progress. I think, if all the Democrats, and so far the Democrats are not producing great results, they are not as enthused as the Republicans, it seems. But if the Democrats and some of the independents give me a chance, I think I have a good opportunity to knock off one of them. I don't think I can knock off, unfortunately, Gail Griffin, because she's like, an old tree with the roots everywhere. She's embedded in that community. She's been in office since 1997, on and off. She's a long history with that, and she's got everybody with money and in business invested in her, because she's a very good investment for them. Not for the people, but for the deep-pocketed people. But I will have to say to you that I've gotten so many nice people that I've met through this. I have no regrets for trying. I think they know that the Democrats are not dead in any of these counties. They know that we exist, and they've showed some respect. And I think just the fact that they're trying to railroad this race, the midterms in Cochise County with this latest maneuver of counting all of the results by hand shows that they're afraid that, you know, that this race is not exactly clear sailing. And for that, I feel good about it.
All right, thank you. Lee Oler, I noticed you had your hand up for a while. Was there a question you wanted to ask?
Oh, sure. I'm so glad to hear the speaker today speaking about her happenings in Romania and when it was a really a communist country. And I also wanted to ask briefly, how is Romania doing now, if you know?
You know, a little bit. I was there about 7 years ago for my 5th grade reunion, where a lot of us were still together, and now we are all over the globe, spread apart. I will tell you, I did not recognize it in the sense that we all had uniforms. Nobody was allowed to have banks, for example. You know, we all had to look, you know, a certain look. We all had matriculation numbers on our coats. So if you misbehaved or somebody could turn you into your school and you'll be expelled. Now kids come to, they look like American kids. They come, you know, with miniskirts to school. Who would have ever imagined? They do karaoke and stuff. I'm so excited about those changes. It's the corruption is still there, but now you can stand up and say this minister is corrupt, and a couple of them have resigned when the corruption was proven and brought into the fore. So it's a little bit better. You are allowed again to have private ownership. So a lot of my friends, my parents' age, who used to live there and own houses, they're reclaiming them. They're going to rehab them because they're in terrible shape. So it's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it's resembling more like Czechoslovakia and, you know, those countries that were always communist, and they still have those communist tendencies in them, because once it starts, it's very difficult to completely uproot it and clean it up. It's definitely better than when I lived there. Let's put it this way. It's improved, but it's still communist. So if you want something done, you have to grease somebody to be able to get a permit to do whatever you want to do. It's not what we are used to here or used to be used here. It's still different.
Thank you very much.
Sanda, I've read your platform and I've watched some of the campaign videos you've made, and I know that affordable housing is an important issue to you. Yeah. You know, people can't buy houses, they can't rent apartments. What's going on in LD19 concerning affordable housing, and is there a solution to it?
Well, you know, I don't know who will be the next mayor, but there is one person that I could work very well with, and she's a Republican and I'm not. But we definitely see eye to eye on so many of our pleas that we have. Her name is Rachel Gray, and I hope she wins. See, in other words, I'm a Democrat. I should hope for the Democratic guy running for mayor to win, but I think she's great. She really is great. She's a Republican person. And she shared with me that, you know, the wait for a low-income housing person to get into an apartment in Sierra Vista is 3 years. Does that sound reasonable to anybody? I don't think so. So, and there are jobs, plenty of jobs available, but people are reluctant to take them because they're afraid of running out of water and buying anything, even if they can afford to buy a house, that if you run out of water, your house is worthless. So they can't fill jobs. And so our goal would be to go and repurpose some empty buildings, connect with some developers who are still interested in making a profit, but also helping people to better the quality of life, and create some housing for those that can afford and minimal, you know, investment, and also get some subsidies from the state to help them become homeowners. Homelessness is a huge problem, and I don't think in a country as rich as ours, it should be something that we can come to grips with and just accept and look the other way. we need to really address the idea of homelessness and making the middle class be able to again be middle class as opposed to the working poor. We are headed more and more that way, that more and more of larger and larger portions of the middle class is becoming a working poor class. So I would love to be able to work and change that.
Okay. We've got George McGaffey here. He's the president of the Green Valley Democrats. George, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, thank you. Today in the Green Valley News, there was an article regarding solar energy and the new green energy, and the gentleman was pushing against Kuby and Kennedy for the corporate commission. I just was wondering where Sanda stood, and maybe she read the article on new energy, solar farms and electric stations.
I did not read the article, but let me tell you, the only reason that anybody would be against the Lauren Kuby and Sandra Kennedy is because they are not for sale kind of representatives. And they are really interested to help the quality, improve the quality of people, as opposed to improve the quality of profit. So I would not really be very supportive of anybody that's got an issue with Kennedy and Kuby, because if they have an issue with Kennedy and Kuby, they're dishonest, you know, they're profiteers, and we don't have a shortage of those. That's another thing that I would like to say. Democrats, you know, I think are making a critical mistake that they don't talk about our economy. Everybody's telling you what a terrible economy we have. That's bogus. That's really dishonest to say. Our economy is very strong. In fact, we have not had such low unemployment in years. The Biden administration has created more jobs than any president ever in our history in the short amount of time. What is not good in our economy, and nobody wants to talk about it, is the profits. And those who are absolutely, as they used to be called by, I don't remember his name. He worked on MSNBC and he used to refer to them as greedy bastards, but that's what they are. I mean, businesses have made larger profits than in the last 70 years, ever. So if at the greed of those who are in businesses, and all of them, you know, it's not just the oil people who are jacking up the prices, if we are to talk about greediflation, you know, not inflation, I think it would be more correct to assess our situation. We have created great jobs, great paying jobs. We have created the ability for Medicare to negotiate price of medicines, of drugs, that Bernie Sanders has been fighting for years to be able to accomplish that. We finally have that now. We have a cap on insulin. We have a cap of $2,800 of medical costs for seniors. I mean, we have done a lot of great stuff. And when you add all of those put together against what the inflation is, which is mainly gas that's going up so much, and some of the groceries, look what just happened. The groceries have merged together. You've got Safeway that bought fries and what is it called? The other grocery store. They're combining together, so they'll be just like Cox and Comcast. You know, you have no competition, you have monopolies, then the prices go up and they make more profit. So let's be honest where the inflation comes from. And I really resent the fact that the Democrats are not standing up for our accomplishments in the last 2 years, which are nothing to be sneezed at and everything to be proud of. And, you know, if the Republicans take over, they already said they are going to do away with Social Security, and they are going to do away with Medicare, and they are going to do away with all kinds of the drugs pricing. And, you know, they have nothing in their pockets to help the people. That's not their goal. That's not their motivation. Their motivation is just like Putin and his oligarchs, is to provide for themselves. So it will be a very small circle of people who are going to profit if the Republicans take over. And that's the super extra rich who are going to become super duper extra rich. That's it. And, you know, those middle class will become the poor class. That's the way I see it.
Susie Anderson has a question. Go right ahead, Susie.
Hi, Sanda. So good to have you. And
Thank you.
about the border, we hear
Yes.
a lot about what's going on in the Yuma sector, but are people worried in your area about what's going on at the border?
Yes, they are worried because, you know, some of the people who live there, they don't like to, you know, they're super duper interested in keeping a super white population. They don't like people of color. But I would just like to, if you think the prices are high now, how many people do you know that are willing to do the works of some of the migrants who work our fields? How many people, how many white people here in Arizona would be willing to go and take their place? I don't know any, and they keep saying they're taking our jobs. I think immigration is a very serious problem. I do. But it's not our problem. It is a federal issue. We send to Washington gutless politicians who just are interested in being reelected and are interested to, you know, to up their personal war chest of dollars. Like Kristen Sinema, she just went to Paris to shop in the thrift shops of Paris with 4 girlfriends. I mean, really, let's face it, let's send to Washington, D.C. some courageous politicians who would be willing to work on real immigration reform. And all of these situations would change. I'm a super big advocate to give DACA kids a way to become citizen, a path to citizenship. We promised it to them 10 years ago. Nothing happened. Why? Why is nothing happening? So we have a proposition now that would like to be allowed to allow the DACA kids to get in-state tuition by all means. They are productive people. They've become productive citizens, and their parents, they all pay taxes. They all pay into Social Security and pay into Medicare, and they never use it because they're afraid to go. So I think that we need to really address immigration reform finally and for all. Stop kicking the can down the road. Do something meaningful. Allow for those people that are living in terrible conditions. I'll tell you, as a person who has left twice, when I left Romania, we left with nothing except the clothes on our backs. And it's a very difficult thing to do, as difficult as my life was in Romania and for my parents. When we left on August 6, 1961, it was a very difficult day for me, very difficult. I cried my heart out because you live for an unknown place where you don't know anybody, you don't speak the language, you don't know, there is nothing familiar to you. When I first arrived in Israel, there was a little girl that trying to teach me how to count in Hebrew. And I couldn't. It was so different than anything that was familiar to me. I thought I would never learn Hebrew. It was terrifying to me. And you go on the street and you don't know a single person. Nobody's saying hello to you. That's not an easy thing to do. If people leave their countries, their families and everything familiar, believe me, they live because they don't have a choice. So we need to do something seriously meaningful for these people. We can afford it.
All right, let's turn to Andrea Kennedy. You've got your hand up. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Larry. Sandra, thanks for coming to us today. When you left Romania, did you have to flee? Did you have some sort of legitimate reason to leave? It sounds like you left, you went to Israel, went back and then came here. Tell us a little more about that whole journey.
Okay, so in Romania, I had no idea that my parents were going to emigrate. I was a musician. I started very young and I went to 2 schools, regular school and music school. And one day we get a phone call from my piano teacher to my parents. We didn't have a phone, so it was at my previous piano teacher who were our friend. And the phone rang, and it was my piano teacher from the music school that I attended, and she wanted to talk to my mother. So it was close to the end of the school year because I was getting ready for my final exam. Each year we had to take an exam in front of a jury, like a jury. And my piano teacher told my mother that I cannot take the exam. I cannot take the exam because I was kicked out of the school because they found out that my parents applied to emigrate. We were turned in by a friend of my family who was also Jewish, who had kids who were musicians as well, but their daughter wasn't chosen to perform in the final year public concert, and I was. So what they did, they went to the director of the music school to say that we have applied to emigrate. They were friends of my family. We knew them well. I still remember the name, Baranga. To this day, I'll never forget it. You don't forget things. So my mother went to meet with the director of the music school and begged her to let me just play the exam. Said, you don't have to give her a grade or anything, but she has worked a whole year on these pieces. Let her play. I was 11 years old. She said, no, we do not support traitors. So that's how I found out that my parents intended to emigrate to Israel. The sooner that they kicked me out of the music school, my other school, they took my pioneer, the red thing that you wear, that everybody wears, that tells you that you are a young communist. They took that away from me. They kicked me out. So I was kind of like a pariah. I had no place to go. No one wanted to talk to me. And that is at 11 years old. So we emigrated to Israel, and that was like, oh my God, coming from Romania, where you had to sit with your hand behind your back and get up when the teachers come, and you sit down when the teacher tells you to sit down. And coming to Israel, where the kids were just wild. They were absolutely wild. We used to lock our teachers out of the room if we didn't want them to come teach us. I mean, that was kind of a day and night experience. And I really could understand. I mean, I was so out of place. My father was a lawyer. And as you know, each country has got their own laws. So he couldn't come to Israel and practice law. So my father at age 50 had to go back to school to kind of regain his license, learn the Israeli laws, pass the exams, and try to become a lawyer. And by the time he finished all of that, and he looked for a job, they told him that, well, he was too old. He didn't have enough experience. My father was a lawyer for 30 years in Romania, but they didn't count in Israel. And they told him at 50, you're too old. We are not interested. So my father actually never got to practice law. So it was a very difficult thing for him. And so I came to the University of Texas in 1968. I had to study with my teacher, who was my idol. And that's where I met Harry, and we got married. We got married with nothing. We just, here we are. We got married with absolutely nothing in our pockets, but it was in Austin, it was all possible because, I mean, what did we need really for our wedding? We invited our friends, and our menu was small little hot dogs, the cocktail hot dogs, and HEB fruit pies, and we had lots of beer, and we were happy. Life was very simple, and everything was possible in America. That's the amazing thing. We didn't have to have money. We just had to have initiative and go for it, and the rest will happen. And it really, that's what it was like for us. It was an incredible opportunities here. Harry hated to play in an orchestra, so he was principal of the Hartford Symphony, and he was principal of the Austin Symphony as a student. We bought our first car with money that he got from a competition that he won, $400. It was a 54 Chevy Bel Air, a great car. I felt like a queen in it. I mean, I knew nobody that had a car. I had a car coming with nothing. My parents sent me to America with a one-way ticket because they couldn't afford to buy a round trip. So I had to fend for myself to make sure that I would survive. And I did, because this is truly the country of opportunity, or at least it was for me when I came here. The amazing thing to me is that when I was in Romania, I never thought that I was poor. Even though my mother had to work in the middle of the night to sew together hand knit sweaters for different stores, so she could get a little bit of extra money because we didn't have enough money for food. There were food shortages. And the reason that they allowed us to emigrate, just as how did I come out of Romania? Well, in Romania, there was a shortage of housing. So there were no places. Sometimes the government would just bring a new family and put it in with your house if your apartment was big enough. A militia guy lived in a building right next to where we were, but they put him in an apartment with a family, the Florian family, but the daughter had polio. So they lived on the first floor, there was no elevator. So the guy was looking for anybody that lived on the first floor, and our apartment was on the first floor, and it had 2 rooms. I always slept in the same room with my parents because the dining room was where my father's office was. He'd meet clients there, and he wanted our apartment. So that's how come we got permission to leave. We were the last ones left in Romania from our entire family. That we had no family left. Everybody fled before us. So they came on March the 17th to look at the house. They liked the house. We had to paint it. We had to do all of the repairs. We had to do million paperwork to fulfill. And they gave us 3 weeks to do that. But after they came on March the 17th, we didn't get any information. We heard nothing from them till July. And eventually they told us that we needed to leave by August 6th. We left on a Russian ship. My father was convinced that there were going to be food for the fish in the Black Sea. We left from Constanța and we went to Istanbul. And since there were no Jews living in Romania this way by boat for many, many years, there was nobody from Israel that even knew we were coming. So we arrived in August the 7th in Istanbul. It was so hot and humid, and nobody had any money because you live in Romania with nothing. You don't even have a passport. You are just given a piece of paper that lets it's a rite of passage. It's called laissez-passer. And you live with the clothes on your back. But we knew from others who left before us that if you bring with you tsuika, which is a slivovitz, I don't know if you know what, it's a very well-known plum liqueur that's typical Romania. And if you get some hard salami with you, that's easy things that you can sell on route and get some money. So when we arrived and disembarked in Istanbul, I was the person that was able to get some coffee and water for the rest of the families. There were 9 families altogether to drink by exchanging that for cigarettes. So I was in Istanbul for exactly 2 days, and on the 9th of August, we arrived in Tel Aviv and were given like an army cover, how do you call it? Yeah, like something to cover yourself up, a gray. We were given each one of us a set of silverware that was made out of aluminum, terrible. And they were given like $20 a piece and were sent to a hotel in Netanya. And that was my start in Israel. Nothing. We knew nobody. My father had no job. My mom had no job. None of us spoke Hebrew. It was difficult. And for many months, my father wanted to move to Jerusalem when he had a sister. They wouldn't allow us. My father said, I'm going to die if you don't send me to Jerusalem. They said, well, I'm sorry, we don't have anything in Jerusalem. So we moved to a little hotel in downtown Jerusalem that they paid for. And my father, my mother, and I lived in one room in a hotel, dilapidated, on Himmelfarb Street. My mother was able to get a job cleaning bottles in a penicillin factory in Jerusalem. And that was our start. So, you know, I have a very soft spot for the immigrants. So we are a rich country here. We should be able to help them out. It's not an easy route to go, illegally or otherwise. It is difficult, and should never lose our soft spot for being compassionate and caring for others.
Sanda, thank you very much for that incredibly moving story. We're so grateful that you made it all the way to the US and Arizona, and we're thrilled that you're running for office. So if you could wrap up the meeting for us, take a minute or two and tell us how we can find out more about you, how do we get in touch with you, and how can we support you?
Okay, you can support me. I'll start with the last thing that you mentioned, Larry. You can support me by sharing my story with your friends and telling them to vote just for me if they live in my district in LD19. Just vote for one. That will help me rob some votes from my opponents. I'm running as a clean candidate, and so you cannot contribute $1 to me. However, if you'd like to help LD19, they've done an immense amount of work to make this race become competitive. Please consider donating to LD19. It's a great group of people, real dedicated Democrats. They sent 50,000 postcards for me to the district to tell people about, just about what Democrats and Republicans stand for, not necessarily just to vote for me. They've done an incredible amount of work, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of them who have participated and supported this incredible, audacious endeavor. I'm running truthfully as a very grateful American. I've had a great life in this country. I love this country. And I can't imagine it losing to fascism. I just can't. It would kill me. I would not want to live here under a fascist regime. We cannot allow Democrats to stay home. This is such an important election. It's really about us remaining a democracy or becoming an authoritarian country. Please tell everybody to come out and vote. We must vote. We must vote for democracy.
All right, absolutely. I just wanted to share real quickly where people can find out more about you. If you go to Sanda Clark's website, you can find out more about her. And she also lists the issues that she stands for. And gosh, if you were in the room, I would give you a big hug right now. And unfortunately,
thank you.
We're on Zoom, but listen, best wishes.
I'll come to Brother Jones for one of those drinking liberals, and I'll take a rain check for that big hug.
All right. Well, we'd love to see you. We'd love to, you and I have met a couple of times before, but I know everybody else would like to meet you too. And with that, I want to wish you the very best. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And here's hoping. I'm going to be going out door knocking for the 5th time in October, this coming weekend. And if I could get people to vote, that's what I'm going to do. So, Sanda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you, everybody, for coming to listen to my story. I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to this country. Thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, goodbye, everybody. And remember, we got to get our Democrats out to vote. And of course, you can be much more effective if you join Democrats of Greater Tucson. There have been some reminders in the chat. And with that, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you very much.